Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Eye on the Community. Of course, I'm your host, Sean Anthony. Joining me up next is the Executive Director for the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, Mr. Tony Coder. Tony, welcome to Eye on the Community. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on, Sean.
It's a pleasure. Let's talk about this program, Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation. What exactly is it, and what do you guys do?
So we work with communities and different organizations to reduce suicide in state of Ohio. Right now, in 2019, we had about 5 suicides every day in the state, and we want to make sure that folks are able to get the help they need to raise the conversation, so that folks don't feel so nervous about having this difficult conversation.
So, what is the LIWBYH campaign about? Can you break that acronym down for us, please?
Yeah, that is life is better with you here. It's a campaign that's focused on mental health in the African American community. We have been seeing a lot of the stats are growing of especially men in the African American community dying by suicide. We're also seeing the young people suicide attempts have increased as well, and we want to make sure that. We have the resources out there to help communities that might be struggling with suicide right now.
Can you talk to us about the importance of having these conversations? I know they're often tough to have, and there is a stigma about talking about mental health and awareness and things like that. But talk about the importance of having these conversations.
uh, these conversations are so crucial, especially right now. We're coming off a really tough year with the pandemic. Over the last year, we've seen a number of folks in the African American community. We bring up George Floyd. That's a painful and traumatic experience. We've been really focusing on systemic racism that exists in our communities. And right now we need to make sure that we are having those conversations. That we also need to acknowledge we're all struggling here, trying to find our way, trying to find this kind of new normal that we have, and hopefully advance some of these issues that have taken place over the past year as well.
You know, we have family members, teens, that want to talk about these things. How should we frame our wording when we're talking to family members about suicide? Because oftentimes we can't just come out saying, "Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself?" Like, how should we word these questions with our family members?
Simply by saying, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on? I noticed I haven't been seeing you around so much. You used to come by. We used to have coffee. Every once in a while. We used to, chat on the phone, whatever. Haven't been noticing that as much. Anything been going on you want to talk about? Maybe even, share your own struggles. It's been a tough year. Having that might be a way for someone else to say, you know what, it has been a tough year. This year's kind of stunk uh, in the past 12 months. So having those conversations, simply asking someone how they're doing, can open up that possibility of those crucial conversations.
What are some of the signs of depression and suicide? Is there something that we can look out for?
Yeah, if you haven't seen the person for a while, if they're withdrawn, if they've just been moody, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, if they've started giving things away. We noticed in Oregon, the state of Oregon, they worked with their folks who run humane societies because they saw an uptick in folks giving their pets away, and soon after those people would take their own lives. So if they're giving things away that are kind of prized possessions, those might be signs that you might want to talk to that person and ask them what's going on.
That's interesting. Do you have statistics available? Like, what are some of the statistics of suicides among Black teens?
Yeah, so black teens, they are the fastest growing rate of suicide in our state. And a 2019 study of what's called the Youth Risk Behavior Study, that's done every 2 years in the state of Ohio. It found that during the last 30 days that these questions were asked, that about 4% of white kids said that they had attempted suicide. 15.8% of black teens said that they had attempted suicide within the last 30 days. That was absolutely startling to me. So we know that folks are thinking about it. So having those conversations, saying, how can I get, how can I help you get some help? I think are really, really important. Also, we've known that we've seen since 2000 that suicides in the Black community, especially among African American men, have risen 78%. It's almost doubled in the last 20 years. So it is something that we're seeing more and more of, and we just need to really tackle this problem head on and have those really, really, sometimes difficult conversations.
Not to deviate too much, but before we conclude, you mentioned this rise over the past 20 years with black men. What have you contributed to? Have you seen any statistics or research that what's causing the rise in suicide rates in black men?
Well, you know, obviously, I think systemic racism is one thing. I mean, racism, not being able to, get the job you want, having, doors shut in your face. Over the last year, we've seen a lot of statistics around people in the African American community getting higher in rates of inflation and loan rates and all of those types of things. So it's all of that coming to a head. I was having lunch with a group of African American men, and they have something that they do called the grief recovery method, and they each point out some painful pieces of their life, not necessarily death, but instead things where they have been really racially profiled, or a police officer, law enforcement been extra hard on them when when they can see their white friends are not getting that same type of treatment. So it's all of those things, I think, really coming to the forefront, and it's not an easy time right now.
Where can people go to get the resources they need for mental health?
If they go to withyouhere.org, that's the program we talked about earlier. The Life is Better with You Here. So it's withyouhere.org. You can also go to the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation website, which is ohiospf.org. You can find how to talk to somebody, resources to help you get some help, and even an opportunity for treatment for young Black girls from a group that we work with called Black Girls Smile. Offer some free treatment for 2 to 6 months to help get that mental health wellness back into check. So, there's lots of things out there, and we want to make sure that your audience knows about them.
Excellent. And teenagers can go to these same sites as well, right?
Absolutely, it's adults, it's teenagers. There's availability for any and all ages.
Excellent. Executive Director of the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, Tony Coder. We definitely appreciate you sharing this information with our listeners.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Take care, Tony. Have a good one.
You too.